Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Awesome. Okay, so first off, I just wanted to say thank you for agreeing to talk with me about this amazing film and its importance. So thank you for that opportunity. Just wanted
Yeah,
to say
you're
that.
welcome.
Um, all right, so getting started, what was the development and the filming process like specifically for Icebreakers? And was it different from any of your other projects?
Projects definitely are always different. I think it really depends on, what the project is, who the team is, how
Yeah.
big the team is, funding, that sort of thing. Development, basically, I'll go through the steps. If I'm going too long and you want me to be quick or, uh, summarize more, let me know. But basically, the National Film Board had a call out in Nova Scotia for a program where they were going to make 3 short films, and the program was called Reimagining Nova Scotia.
Hmm.
So basically, they were hoping to tell stories that were, atypical from the region, things that you don't necessarily think of when you think of Nova Scotia. So I had just read this book called Black Ice, which is by George and Daryl Fosty. They're 2 brothers, and it's basically about the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes. So I thought that this subject matter would be perfect. It hadn't really been talked about much, especially in film. There is a feature film called Soul on Ice
Mhm.
about Black hockey players in general and the history, so they touch on the league, but no one had really, focused on it. So basically, I pitched it. Um, they loved the idea. They, greenlit it, and the greenlighted. I don't know, but they so that happened. And originally, when I pitched the film, it was very like historical. I did not have a good idea of how I I think it was very historical, sort of educational. And then I realized that there aren't a lot of visuals that remain from that time, from the leagues. So making a documentary without something visually appealing would be really tough. So I decided to it might be good for the audience to learn about the league through a young character as the character learns. So basically, I had been talking to Lee Francis, who is the black hockey coach you see in the film. All throughout development, he was a big help in research. He's really involved in hockey here and the Black Ice Society. And I asked him if he knew of any up and coming black hockey players. He told me he had heard of this kid called Josh Crooks, and basically I said, okay. He said he hadn't met him. I said, okay, hold off on meeting him. I'd love to get that on camera if we can. And luckily Josh agreed to it. So basically that whole process maybe took a year or so. The development process was long. And then, we shot a demo, and then we went into production. We only shot maybe, I think, 10 total days. Um, Plus the demo shoot day maybe. And I'm trying to think. So yeah, so that happened, and we had to wait until hockey season to shoot a lot. But then you go through post production, finish the film, and yeah, that's basically
Awesome.
it.
So you touched on a little bit of how I guess you came across Josh for this project. Would you say there, or what would any particular inspiration that gave way for this film, or yeah, what inspired you to really follow the story?
Yeah, well, speaking of Josh specifically,
Yeah, Josh, and just the I guess the whole story in general too.
yeah, sure. Well, I'm not black, but I am a person of color. And, growing up in Canada, I grew up in the Atlantic, basically between Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. And, hockey is such a big part of Canadian identity. And there, especially, I was often the only person of color. And you just feel like it's something you can't really participate in, even though you can watch, you never, it doesn't feel like you belong there.
Mhm.
And so when I learned about the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes, I just thought it was fascinating, um, that this history existed, that, Black people were pioneers of the sport,
Yeah.
basically. Um, and I thought it was something that should be common knowledge. I also, on a personal level, growing up in Prince Edward Island, it's changing a bit now, but it was so white, and especially in terms of cultural diversity, I knew maybe two Black families there, my whole time being there. So to know that there were entire teams of Black hockey players from Prince Edward Island was really cool to me. Um, so, that was sort of the link. I just think hockey is such a big part of Canadian identity, and it's so white, yet Canada is this multicultural society, or that's what we tell ourselves, and we say we embrace everybody. So there's a disconnect there. So that was really interesting to me. And, someone like Josh, he was just such a great um, sort of guide into that world, into the hockey world, especially for someone like me who doesn't know that much about hockey. He's, very responsible and likable, and you see how the knowledge of this history changes him. So I was excited to highlight someone like him in the film, and I think it was a good experience for him. So I got really lucky with finding Josh for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. And I can also say that from watching this film, I learned a lot of things, especially who invented hockey. I had no idea.
Mhm.
Um, so would you say this film was a learning experience for you in any way? And did you learn anything new from directing it?
Yeah, I will just say, Black people were part of, framing and developing hockey, but also the Indigenous people were,
Mm.
sort of the real,
Yeah.
OG pioneers.
Hmm.
They were there from the beginning and sort of molded this sport into what it is. But sorry, what was the question about what I learned?
Yeah, just was this film more of a learning experience for you, and what did you sort of take from it?
Yeah, it definitely was a big learning experience for me. I'm still considered, an emerging filmmaker, I believe. This was my first time making a film with an actual production crew. I was really lucky because the National Film Board covers the funding, and they help get you a cinematographer, and the producer was there to help guide me along. So I learned a lot about the filmmaking process in general, when working at a sort of professional level. um, so that was big. And I had read the book, so I knew that history, or what we know so far about the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes. But I think I got to see firsthand what this history and knowledge of it can mean to someone in the present day, and I saw how significant that can be. So that was something that was really interesting.
Yeah. Um, I also read, just looking up the film after I finished watching it, I also read that there was some controversy with in terms of the scene where Josh and his father are in the Hamilton Hall of Fame, or the in the Hall of Fame. I don't remember which one it was. Sorry. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So there was some controversy there with the CEO even jumping on the defensive. So I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been, and how crazy that situation must have been. So what were your thoughts on the situation, and the claims that the Hall of Fame were making?
Yeah, I don't know how deep I can get into it. It is sort of a long drama. It was a very emotionally trying experience because, as someone who isn't Black but is a person of color, so I knew that that was sort of what um, made Josh and his family and Lee trust me and give access to their lives to me. So it wasn't something I took lightly. So when this was all happening, I felt they were amazing and very supportive and fired up to handle this, but I also didn't want bad to come out of it for them, or for them to feel like this was a negative experience participating in the film.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they had issues with it's so funny to try to dance around this. They had issues with the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and their claim was basically that uh, they do have, I think it was 4 or 5 Black hockey players inducted into the Hall of Fame. But the thing is, when we went there, there are no pictures of them, and I think when you're talking about someone's race being significant, you need to be able to see them. If you're saying that that was part of the reason why they were extraordinary or stood out. So when we went there, we didn't see any Black hockey players. And then as we left, and it was just a fluke that we found this, we saw that one picture from the Colored Hockey League that was half covered, which, I'm not, I would, I don't think they did that intentionally. They covered it up, but it does send a message, even if it is unintentional, that, this isn't as important. So I think they took issue with, I think they just didn't appreciate being painted in this light because they didn't mean anything and by the omission of Black hockey players. But I think, yeah, I think that hopefully they've learned that just because they have a responsibility to represent all members of the community. And yeah, I don't know if I can get further into it. I can off the record, I'm
Oh yeah,
happy to talk to you,
that's a
but
yeah, that
um
yeah,
I'm
no
happy
that
to talk off the record about it
yeah, no
because like
problem.
it's worth knowing about. But especially when there was like they
Mm-hmm.
were threatening legal action
Yeah,
and all of those things, which to me was very silly.
yeah.
But yeah, but I will say so basically when that was happening, the community sort of pushed back. Glee and John and lots of their friends started contacting the Sport Hall of Fame, and even a group of students at Dalhousie University contacted the Hall of Fame and started an Instagram sort of campaign to get them to basically just take like uh, retract their threat of legal action. And
Mm-hmm.
they did, and they said they wanted the film to remain as is. So in the end everything was fine, but it was a really um really tough situation to navigate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um, Also, in relation to Black History Month this month, um, so this film follows Josh's journey into his hockey career, of course, but it also reveals, I think, the long history that Black Canadians had with playing hockey. So, therefore, do you think it's important to tell stories like icebreakers? We talked about this a little bit, but is it important to tell these stories in our current world, and how does that kind of connect to, I guess, our modern world?
I think it's so important, one, because this history isn't known and it really changes the way I personally look at hockey and the
Mm-hmm.
framework we sort of operate with in the present day. um, I think, yeah, I'm sure there are sayings that basically reiterate the fact that we can't know where we're going without knowing where we came from. um, and I think it's really important for players of color to know that they've always deserved and um, had a place on the ice. That's not a question. But I think this might give them a little more um, sure-footedness on the ice, just to know that they belong, that their place there isn't, sort of just there for the sake of it. Um, I think it might just give them more of a sense of belonging and, a sense of confidence that they deserve a place out there on the ice.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly,
Mhm.
I wanted to acknowledge how crucial it is to have directors of color involved in telling these amazing stories, and especially to tell. So, did this film have any? Sorry, I was glitching out there. Um,
Yeah, yeah. After you said directors of color, I think.
okay, maybe I'll just repeat just to get. Yeah, sorry, I saw
Yeah,
myself
sure.
glitching. I was worried. Um, so, lastly, I wanted to acknowledge how important it is to have directors of color telling these stories, and especially in the way that you did, that was so heartfelt and relatable to everyone, I feel like. So, did this film have any personal connections for you? And what would you say was your main idea to pass on to its audiences?
I think one thing that I prioritized people of color of who I was making it for. The way the film is made and edited, I think it has an educational value for everyone, but I really did it with the hopes that, people of color watching this could relate to it or have it resonate and make them feel something and feel like it was made for them. I think a lot of what sort of matters to do with race can be towards white audiences and teaching them about people of color and about race. And that wasn't something I wanted to do. So even when um, you know, I wanted to make sure this was a story that wasn't about trauma, even though it touches on that. It's something that signifies hope and strength. So that was something that was really important to me. And ideally any director with any background would prioritize that. But I do think it is a bit rare for sort of a group, a minority group, to be the priority instead of sort of the widest audience. But that was my goal.
Yeah. Uh, awesome. So those were all my questions for today. Um, thank you again for agreeing to speak with me. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and what is this for?
I'm writing a story that's about centering around this film, but also its relation to like Black History Month and how that kind of connects to kind of how history is ongoing. Um, yeah.
Awesome. If and I know I'm rambly and
Yeah.
I went off on tangents and it's early, so I'm sure that didn't help. But if you need me to say anything more succinctly, like email me and I'm happy
Yeah.
to give
No
you
worries.
something that's more easy to quote. I know I'm also a writer, so I know how it is sometimes.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Bye.